Hey everybody, welcome back to Ugly Speed Shop. So we finally got a break in the hot 100-degree, yep, Brian, go ahead and drink, weather here in Oklahoma. So we're going to get started on these parts: oil pan gasket and transmission pan and transmission filter, and an oil change on the 2005 Lexus. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here are the things that we're going to be putting on the car. This is the lower oil pan gasket. And this is your upper oil pan gasket. If you order the entire kit, it's like $15 more or something like that, maybe even a little bit more than that. And all it is this gasket and a tube of freaking RTV. So the upper pan gasket only gets RTV by what I've seen so far. We'll see when we get the pan off to be sure. Got some oil filter, got a new transmission pan. I'll show you why we got that, and a new transmission filter to put on. So, and I'm assuming that's got the gasket in as well. But I haven't looked at it. Yep, there's a gasket in there. So that's what we're gonna be doing on this video, is working on the old Lexus. Definitely gonna get it up in the air a little bit more than that. Plus I have to take this tire off again because it's leaking again. So I don't know what the heck. I've never had to deal with so many freaking holes in tires in my life since we moved to Oklahoma. But hey, I still love it here. So what's a patch here and there? So let's get into it. All right, so here's the oil pan that we got to pull off. We're going to pull this skirt off here too. And here's the transmission pan. But if you look right here, you can see how this is dented in. I don't like it being dented like that, so I'm going to replace that. And since they're cheap, it was like 30 bucks for a new pan. I'm like, what the heck? Why not? And so we're going to remove this oil pan as well. We're going to start with that before we get to transmission. I don't have transmission fluid right now, so we'll have to get some of that when we go to town next. But yep, I gotta get the oil pan off. But first we gotta move this, take the skirt off, so it can actually work a little easier. All right, so on further inspection, we are only going to change the rear pan gasket, or the bottom pan gasket, because basically you have to pull the entire motor apart to remove the lower pan or the upper pan. So I'm not going to do that today because I can't take it down that long. Basically, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to pull the whole thing apart and reseal the entire engine. So that'd be another time. But for now, we're just going to do that oil pan, the lower oil pan. There are a bunch of 10mm bolts on there, so let's get them off. Well, getting that out was a bigger pain in the butt than I thought it was going to be. But you can see right here, that was where it was leaking, right around this area. So, and they must have just used RTV on it because I don't see an old gasket. Maybe that's just the way people do it for these Toyotas, or Lexus, whatever you want to call it. It's basically a Toyota. But I see chunks of material in there from, I just did that one, but saw a chunk somewhere in here that from the old RTV. So, but yeah, we got it out. That was a pain in the butt. Like, it was glued in there pretty damn good, but because it was leaking from right there, yeah, it didn't really do much good, did it? And that's all brittle now too. So I don't know how long ago that was done. So time to replace it. All right, so I cleaned out the bottom of the pan. See this little bit of burnt on oil there, but I ain't too worried about that. Next thing I gotta do is get the old gas material off of there. I already cleaned underneath on the engine block, or the upper oil pan. So we're gonna clean this off right now, and I'm gonna use that, the pedestal grinder, and to get all that off there because it's on there pretty thick. So. All right, so we got the gasket surface all cleaned up on the pan now. So it's looking really good. So one thing I did notice, when I flipped it over, you see that gap underneath there? I don't know how well it's going to show up on the video, but it's a pretty good gap right there, so I have to bend this pan back. I don't know if that was the cause of the leak or if that was for me prying it off there. Probably me prying it off, but gotta fix that first and then we can put it back on with the new gasket. All right, so I got that dent taken out of the pan so it's flat now. So now we're gonna put the pan gasket on using some RTV. And I'm just gonna use a little dab on there just to fill the gaps. And then we'll put the pan back up in there after it sets up a little bit. Just gonna dab it on my finger because that way I get a nice thin coat. All right, so we got a nice thin layer on there. So we go around the edge and just take up the extra so it's not hanging over. Oops, trying to slip and mess it up. All right, I'm gonna place the gasket on there. It's kind of a flimsy gasket, so it's kind of hard to work with, but try to get it on there and line it up with the holes. And then, to keep it lined up so it can set up a little bit, I'm gonna use the bolts. So two of these bolts, well not bolts, but two of them are studs on the actual block. So we don't have enough for all of them. I do believe it's these corner ones here, but I don't know for sure. But what I can do is grab a 1/4-20 bolt and stick it in there for the rest of it, if it'll fit. And 1/4-20 fits perfect. Okay, so I'm just gonna make sure it's seated on there good. Then I'm gonna let that set up for a little bit. I'm gonna put another layer of RTV on this side of it too. Then we'll install in the pan on the. All right, so we got this side of the gasket coated now. So now I'm gonna put them up in there, and they are torqued to I think 8 nanometers or whatever the heck it is. So let's get it torqued up in there. All right, so we got the pan put in. So let's go ahead and top her off with oil, and that'll be done for that part of it. So then we'll move on to the transmission pan. There's one thing I want to share that really drives me nuts on this car. Look at how shallow it is inside where you fill the oil. So you have to pour it super slow in order for it to not spill over. And I don't think I've ever not spilled over on this damn car. All right, so the next item up for repair is the unplanned one. See if we can find the hole in this tire and hopefully be able to patch it. So let's get to that. Let's get it off and spray it down with some soap. Well, found it. That's a really slow leak this time, but you see it bubbling up. Can't tell if there's actually something there, or it's just a little hole. All right, I'm gonna play around with that, see if I can get it sealed. All right, we got her patched, or plugged. Yeah, I know, people don't like the plugs, but I've never had them fail on me yet. So the next thing I want to move on to is doing this transmission pan. So, if you look underneath here, you see where it's dented right there. So, I want to replace that, change the filter and everything too. However, damn engineers, let's put a couple bolts on top of the freaking the engine cradle here, so it's impossible to get to. So I have to jack the motor up, disconnect this motor mount over here, and try to get up in there and get that bolt loose and shimmy it out of there. So that's gonna be fun. Not to mention, so we got 1, 2. This is only the 2 bolts that are gonna be an issue, but the rest of them should be all right. Just those 2 right there. I think I can lift it up far enough if I disconnect the top of that motor mount right there. So we'll see. All right, so I got the pan lifted up far enough where I can think I get a 1/4 inch swivel socket on those now. Should be good, and I can actually go in from here too, maybe. But the rest should be fine. It's just those two main ones up in there are a pain in the butt. But I got enough room in there now. I should be able to get it out without any problem. So let's get this pan taken off. That's gonna make a mess. I just realized that because the jack is in the way. I'm gonna spin it out of the way. All right, well, one thing I gotta give the engineers credit for on this one, because I'm used to mostly V8 stuff and whatnot, and that's a different size hole. Okay, they have a drain plug, which is cool. The new drain plug has a smaller Allen head. This should be a 10 millimeter. Yeah, so the factory wants a 10 millimeter. The Dorman replacement's got an 8 millimeter. Now I gotta see if I can actually catch any of this fluid when it falls because the jack is in the way. Not too bad. A little bit of splash. I think that's catching it pretty good, so we'll get that drain out. Then we'll get to taking it out. Yeah, I'd say it's definitely due for a changing anyways. All right, let it drain. All right, let's get this pan off here, and I'm going to incorporate using these really nice wobbly 1/4-inch drive sockets. So should be able to get up in there and get those two bolts out that are up underneath there. Let me get. Two. So those are the two hardest ones to get to. And that's the ones I had to lift the motor up for to get to. So I'm just gonna get the rest of them off there. All right, so it looks like the filter's held in by 3 bolts. So let's go ahead and pull those out. Those are nice long ones because they go all the way up through the, can't think what they're called right now. But that thing. I can't think of why. I don't know why I can't think what they're called. My mind is out of it today. And there you have it. Got the old filter out. Full of nice, ugly, burnt fluid. Get the O-ring out of there. Ain't too bad, at least. I'm thinking this probably isn't the original one, but you never know. Just let that drain some more, and then we'll come back to it. Just real quick, compare the pans, make sure that they're the same. I already took the magnet out of the business pan, but on the new one, it just sits in there. It's not like just magnetically stuck there. Everything else looks good. Still has the original gasket on it. And we got a new one for that in the kit. So let's go check that out. Yeah, so we got the new gasket. It's a pretty nice gasket. It's rubber. It's not cork. Which is kind of nice. And new filter, which looks exactly the same as the old one. So should be good to go on that. And it's got the new O-ring on it, so we'll put a little lubricant on that. Pop it up in there and bolt it in. Yeah, we're gonna put this new filter up in there. Gonna use a little bit of this residual fluid to lubricate the O-ring. Yes, I know it's the old stuff, but it'll work good enough. I'm not doing a full-on flush here, so slide it up into place. Got the bolts cleaned up, ready to go back in to the valve body, which I finally remembered how the dang thing was called. Sure, it's very little torque. Same with the putting the pan back up on. Dang it. putting the pan up on there, I'm sure the torque spec's real low, so you don't crush and pinch the gasket out. So, okay, so the filter's in there now. Let me check torque specs and we'll torque it down later. All right, so the only reading torque spec I could find on that filter was 7 foot-pounds. So like 36 nanometers, Newton meters, something like that. So yeah, I just kind of torqued it on by feel and it'll be fine. So next thing we gotta do is get this gasket. I'm gonna go ahead and glue or put some automatic transmission fluid, RTV, on this just to hold the gasket in place so it stays on the pan. And I won't put any more on it after that. It's just gonna basically hold the gasket to the pan. All right, so I got the gasket setting up right now, using the bolts to hold it in place. And once that dries a little bit, we'll go ahead and pull the bolts out and stick it up on the car. And initially when I put these things on, I use this, which is just a ratcheting style gun. I set to the least amount there is. So the torque specs on these bolts are 65 inch-pounds. So that is way less than that by doing that. So I can even turn it up. In fact, when I did the oil pan, I did it on the lowest setting and I had to crank it around like a full turn before it would actually torque down to 69 foot-pounds. So that's how I set it on there and started them out. Then I let it set up in there that way and go back through and retorque them or torque them to spec. All right, let's get this pan up in here so we can finish this job. You get out of here, Duck. Dipstick. It's pretty crazy how something as simple as a dipstick can get in your way and cause all kinds of problems. Okay, so we got them started. Now we just gotta put the rest of them in. All right, so I got the pan in there initially. Let the RTV set up a little bit, and then go back through and torque them to 65 inch-pounds. All right, so we got the pan back on there, all torqued down, got the motor mount bolted back down. So this job is done. I'm gonna make sure that drain bolt is, drain plug is torqued, and then that's it. All right, so we got the pan on, torqued down, everything's good. Gotta put fluid in it still, get the tire put back on, get it dropped down on the ground, all that good stuff, and clean up the mess. It's amazing how much of a mess the transmission pan can make. And we got Dick down here, making all kinds of noise. All right, so we topped all the fluid, we put the tire back on, dropped her back down, took her for a test drive. She's shifting good, feeling really good. Nothing's leaking as of yet. So I'm calling this one a thumbs up good. I'm gonna finish it up for this video on the Lexus, replacing the transmission pan, doing an oil pan gasket, oil change, and fresh filter for the transmission. So I also patched the tire too while we were at it. So if you like this video, go ahead and leave a like down there. And I can't talk again. Leave a like down there if you like the video. Comment, let me know what I can do better. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed. So until next time, I'll see y'all later.